Hey everyone, welcome to the 12th episode of the Coffee with Cosmos DB series. If you have missed to join the last time, you can watch the recording. If you would like to know more about a particular topic or a feature, please ask in the chat so that we can take it up and discuss here. If you're joining the live session for the first time, this series is all about spreading the knowledge on Azure Cosmos DB by the experts to the community. So please make sure to subscribe the channel and share with the community members who are looking to learn more about Cosmos DB. If you're interested to present or have any feedback, please reach out to me. And thanks for all the feedback so far. With that, we have a special topic today and with a special guest. Today we have someone from the product management team joining us. We call him as security expert from the Cosmos DB team. Let me add him to the stage. Hey Dileep,
Hi Saji, hi everyone.
how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. So Dileep, I think today's topic is very critical to Cosmos DB customers. Security is a fundamental uh, thing for every business, right? So let's get started. I won't take much of your time. You can get started. So probably we'll start with the question. So when someone wants to get started with Cosmos DB, especially on the security side, I know that we have different layers on the Cosmos DB side and from the customer side as well. So what are the different layers of security, that we have on the Cosmos DB side? So, yeah,
Sure. So, hey, thanks again for having me on the show. It's a great privilege to talk to your audience. So, my name is Dileep Rao. I am a program manager at the Cosmos DB. I work from Bangalore in India. So, today, as Saji mentioned, I'm going to talk to you about a very important topic, which is security. For some, it may be very dry, but all the more, it's very important for everyone to consider security as an important thing in whatever data they are storing. And one of the reasons why Cosmos DB is very popular in the enterprise space and also with startups is because it gives you great features to secure your data. And in today's world, I think I cannot emphasize more how important data security is. So now coming to this, the layered approach, right, Saji, what you talk about. So how it works is we are giving you security at different stages. So if I can put it in very simple ways, uh, before somebody accesses Cosmos DB, what are the levels of security we provide? Right, these are all related to the network and IP firewalls and so on and so forth. So we'll get to that. The next thing is once somebody comes and starts talking to Cosmos DB, how do we make sure that they are the right users or the right application? And then in turn, what are they allowed to do? So basically, this is the authentication and authorization piece of it. And then once they start, they get the approval and they understand what are their rights and they start talking or sending data or reading data. How is the data in transit? What levels of encryption we provide and what is the support we have around that? So that is the third stage. And the fourth one is once you put the data on Cosmos DB, what type of encryption options do we provide to make sure that your data is secure, right? So these are the, at a high level, important points that I want to cover in today's session as well. So these are the different categories also, like trying to at a very high level bifurcate. So there are so many other things like data center security, like how do you control physical access to data centers where the actual machines are residing. Then we also talk about how many data centers we have and how the data moves between data centers, what type of global replication we have, and so many other aspects with related to security that is there. But let us stick to the core topics, and we can ask questions, like we can drill down into any of these topics in more detail depending on what type of questions comes up. But yeah,
sure.
everybody should know take these things forward first. Yeah. So, Saji, can you go to the previous slide, please?
Yep.
Yeah, sure. So let us get started. So I think the first step, what we can get started with is the network security. Right, network security is a great, it's a great place to start our security discussion as well. Stuff like IP firewall, virtual network support, private endpoints. These are all the front line for any security mechanisms. And this is generally considered as the first level of defense as well. Now let us talk about IP firewall. See, by default, when you start Azure Cosmos DB, it is accessible from the public internet. It doesn't mean that somebody can come and write data or read data, but still, it's not a great practice to do it that way. So, with IP firewall configurations, you can configure your Azure Cosmos DB account to be accessible from either one IP, or you can give a range of IPs, or you can restrict it to some type of cloud service. Whenever they come from these approved IPs or setup, and they present a valued authorization token, they will be able to read and write to Cosmos DB. In case if somebody is coming from outside this perimeter, from an IP which is not whitelisted or which is not there in the approved list, then that particular request will get a 403 or a forbidden error. So this is at a basic level where your IP will control which your IP firewall will control which IPs can talk to Cosmos DB or not. In addition to this, right, generally to make it simple and make it good and convenient for the developers, I will suggest you to do a few things like allow Azure portal to access the Cosmos DB account. So while you are configuring and starting all that, right, you can go and click and enable your portal to get access to Cosmos DB. Similarly, I will also suggest you to go and add Data Explorer to access your Cosmos DB. This will help you to retrieve the metrics and so on and so forth. And while you are doing development, typically you may be doing your quick code and all that on your laptop. So you may want to also add your current IP address to the firewall rules. This is just to simplify the development, and all these are sort of there are shortcuts on the portal while you are creating the database to set this up. In general, you can set up all your IP firewall rules either using the Azure portal, or you can use the ARM templates, or you can use the CLI or PowerShell. So whatever is comfortable with you, or whatever type of automation you have in your setup or in your whatever your org is following, you can sort of go and piggyback on all those things. So that's your IP firewall setup, right? So now moving to the second line item under network security, it is virtual network support with service endpoints. Now, even though you may know your IPs and all that, right, it's a pretty cumbersome process to go and add every IP from where the request can originate. The easier way to do this, and perhaps even a more secure way to do this, is you can create a virtual network, and you can allow clients within a virtual network to access Cosmos DB. So all you need to do is go and create a subnet and add that particular subnet in the approved list, right? And then you also go and create a service endpoint, and the service endpoint enables you to. So what the service endpoint does is it helps you to avoid having a public IP before you talk to Cosmos DB. So the service endpoint enables you your private IP, whatever is there in that VNet, to reach the endpoint of any Azure service. In this case, it is Cosmos DB, without needing any public IP address on the VNet, right? And then the service endpoint will change the identity of the traffic. It will go and give all the details about the origin, where that particular request is originating from, what is the subnet, and what is the VNet. So that's what this thing provides. So this is a more better way to go rather than go and add individual IP addresses. Now, moving to the third point, again, a more secure and more important one. Uh, so, so remember one thing: the service endpoint actually resides outside the VNet. So there is a small data exfiltration possibility that can happen because you have to go from your private setup to whatever is there uh, uh, external to the VNet, right? So that's why what you can do is you can create a private endpoint instead of a service endpoint. The private endpoint exposes Cosmos DB resources through IP addresses that are private and are local to the VNet, unlike the earlier option. So by using the Azure private link, that's how you actually go and connect to Azure Cosmos DB using a private endpoint. So the private endpoint is again a set of private IP addresses in the subnet, similar to the previous one. You will be able to go and talk with the private IP addresses itself. And then you can go and limit your Cosmos DB to go and allow certain private IP addresses, and then you can control restrict your private endpoint with a private DNS. These are all some additional steps you need to do because for you to get the FQDNs, right, the fully qualified domain names, you need to have some type of private DNS to resolve those IP addresses and domain names. But nonetheless, it's easy. Lot of customers do that. And in case if you are on a private endpoint and you want to access other Azure services, then you can use the express route and connect your private link to the other Azure on-prem services which you may be using. So, Saji, are there any questions around network security topic per se from our customer base?
So far, I don't see any questions on the chat. You may proceed with the topic.
Awesome.
Good.
So this was the first stage, Saji, as we spoke about, where we are putting a lot of controls on how what happens before a customer comes and talks to Cosmos DB. So now, assuming that this is fully authorized and or basically not authorized means I'm telling that these IPs are allowed, and then request comes in to Cosmos DB. What happens next? So we have authentication authorization mechanisms to make sure that the right user or the user who he is saying he is coming and doing what he is allowed to do. So basically, that's what your authentication and authorization actually does. So first thing is we allow access for like you who have this primary key and secondary key, right? So now making sure that every account, right? Every account comes with a primary key and a secondary key, right? Why do we give the two keys? Is because there may be a situation where you want to change the keys. There may be certain rotation policies within the organization which you need to adhere to, or you feel that some key has got compromised and you want to change it. So in whichever way, we give you a mechanism where you can continuously and always access Cosmos DB without any downtime to the application. So that's why we have two keys, primary key and secondary key. Now, the primary key and secondary key comes with two type of privileges actually. One is like a read-only key, say a primary key, and one is a read-write primary key. Similarly, you get a read-only secondary key and a read-write secondary key. So with this, you can, depending on whom you give the key, they can only do certain operations. They can only perhaps only read. If you want certain applications not to modify the data, you just give them the read-only key. So in that case, they can just come and only do read activities and they will not be able to modify anything. Now, with primary key and secondary key, you will not be able to do any fine grain access control. For that, you can use either resource token or you can use RBAC. So now moving to the next important thing, right, which is resource token. So what resource token does is it's basically a token which is handed over to the user or the application in this case to come and do certain things on the Cosmos DB. So what they can do is very specific. So you let us say you want to restrict somebody to only create containers, or they can read documents, or they will not be able to read and write documents, or whatever it is, right? They will not be able to trigger any stored procedures or triggers, or they will not be able to touch UDF. So you can give fine grain controls on that token. What the token user or the person or the application that comes with the token, what they can do, what they cannot do is completely customizable. And the beauty of this is it is also customer. It is also it's like a time to live. So you can allocate that this token will be alive for, let us say, 1 hour, right? I think the default is 1 hour, and you can change it to have access till the time you feel it is appropriate. Like maybe you can go with 12 hours or 24 hours, right? So the Cosmos DB resource token provides a safe alternative that enables the client to do read, write, delete resources, create resources, and all that on your Cosmos DB account according to the permissions that are given. And in this case, you don't need to share the primary key or the secondary key, which has the read write or the read only options, right? That is something which you can completely avoid. And then, of course, the world is moving towards this system as well. Azure Cosmos DB supports RBAC. RBAC stands for this role-based access control. It's a fully identity and access management module, and we directly integrate with Azure Active Directory for this. So what you can do is, again, with the RBAC that is allowed, you can either provide or you can restrict access to the Cosmos DB accounts the databases, the containers, who can change the throughput, who can access certain documents and all that, right? So you can use these roles. Basically, these RBAC comes with roles, and then these roles can be either used directly. There are a lot of to tweak something which is very specific to your organization, you can go and you can build custom roles as well. So these are the other options that you have around RBAC controls that we allow, and direct integration with Azure Active Directory, which is a very popular store, and many organizations keep all their user data there, and then you can have a single identity and access management mechanism to make sure that the user certification is also, so when somebody joins an organization, depending on what type of roles and the groups they are added to, automatically they will get access. And the moment somebody leaves the organization or moves teams or changes teams, certain things are automatically triggered, and the security of who can access data, whether they are allowed to access the data or not, is done to the T in this case, the control.
Dilip, I have a question. Like there is one question on the chat,
Mhm.
just highlighting what is the difference between resource tokens and RBAC? When to use what?
Yeah. So I think this is a, very good question, and we have a detailed documentation about differences between Azure RBAC and resource token. But in general, remember that resource tokens will give you certain capabilities, but not all the capabilities. Like for example, you will not be, it is all specific to the users that are there on Cosmos DB, right? Whereas in RBAC, you can bank on the users that are there on Azure Active Directory. Your other things about when a user is created, when a user should not exist in the system, all those things are governed with the organization's identity and access management policy. Whereas in the resource token based approach, you will be having to do one additional step to make sure that the users who are there on Cosmos DB are the right users, right? So apart from that, there are a few things I would like to quickly point to that documentation. Please give me a second.
Sure. I think we can add it at the end as well. You can continue with the flow.
Sure. So yeah, I will definitely give you some additional details around it. But yeah, that's a very good question, and it's an important thing as well. All right. So now we have, in a way, dealt with two things, like one, who can access the Cosmos DB database, and when they finally go through all the networking related setup, we are also validating what that user or what that application can do on Cosmos DB. Now, once we authenticate and authorize the user and the application, right? What is the next stage? The next stage is you start reading and writing data. Now, for that, the good thing is we also have uh, encryption for data in transit, right? Now, that is the TLS or SSL setup that we support, and we support up to the TLS levels of 1.2. So typically what happens is between the client and the server, there is an agreement that happens to make sure that the communication happens at the highest level of support between the client and the server that is available. So since Cosmos DB already has server level support for TLS 1.2, if your client has got support for 1.2, the ciphers, then automatically the most secure cipher is automatically handshaked and agreed upon, and then the data is encrypted using that while it is in transit. And then also remember that it is possible for you to enforce the minimum version of TLS as well. So although the server will do a negotiation between the client, first it will try 1.2, then 1.1, and then 1.0. But if you want no client to talk to the server at anything less than 1.2, then you can restrict it on the server that, hey, I want to make sure that the server is enforcing 1.2 by default. So that is also a setting. I think I can share some links around how to set that as well. But these are all the wonderful security mechanisms that we have to make sure that the data in transit is also encrypted and it's secure. All right. So, do we have any questions on TLS per se, Saji, from the? Uh,
No, so I have a question on that, right? On the TLS. Say if I want to degrade the version, would I be able to do that through the, or is it mandatory to have the latest TLS? I mean the 1.3.
See, we are still in a work in progress to support TLS 1.3. We have full support for TLS 1.2.
Okay,
Now, see, you can, if you do not enforce 1.2 on the server side, then as I told you, the negotiation happens between the client and the server to pick the most appropriate protocol or the most secure protocol that is available between both the parties. So you do not need to specifically this mechanism to allow the server and the client to negotiate. You should be fine, and it will reserve. It will do a handshake on the most secure cipher in the order of priority, and then your data will get encrypted while in transit.
got it. Okay,
Okay, so all right, so let's move to the last segment, which is again a very important one. It is encryption for data in rest. Now, by default, any data that you are storing on Cosmos DB, it is encrypted using the Microsoft default BitLocker encryption. So just to re-emphasize this and say this again, any data that is written on Cosmos DB is encrypted. Now, if you can just move to the next slide, Saji.
sure. Yeah, you can see it, right?
Not yet, it is still showing the earlier slide for me.
Okay, I can.
Okay, I'm not sure about others, but I can talk through this while we while this gets reflected. So
Sure.
basically, as I told you, right, we have this encryption that is there by default. This encryption service is managed using service managed keys on Cosmos DB. So in this case, the key rotation and servicing is fully managed by the encryption service, which is there by default on Azure Cosmos DB. Right? This is something which the user doesn't need to worry about rotation of keys and uh, is the data like when to trigger encryption and all that. It is something which is automatically managed, and this is the first layer of protection of encryption for data at rest on Cosmos DB that is triggered automatically. And this is independent. Okay, so this is level one. There may be situations where you are storing your customer's data and your customer does not want to share the key with you as well. So they want to bring their own key or customer managed key in this case. So this service is independent from the CMK, which we are going to talk about next. But one level of encryption is there by default, which is completely automated, and it's completely managed by Microsoft in this case. The second level is we allow you to bring your own key. So it could be your organization wants to have one more level of encryption over and above what Microsoft provides, or it could be mandated by your customers' data. So we may have ISVs who are having a solution which is hosted on Cosmos DB, and then they want their customers to enjoy the benefits of it, right? But the customer does not want to share their key because of their compliance reasons. So we allow the customer to bring their own key, keep it in Azure Key Vault, and then do one more level of encryption over and above whatever we provide by default. So this encryption service is something which is customer managed. The key rotation and managing of the keys in Azure Key Vault, it is something which is ownership of the customer in this case. And this customer key, we keep it in Azure Key Vault. So you will have to create a Key Vault instance and then keep the key. And you can manage the key completely using the Azure Key Vault interface. This is the second level of encryption that you get over and above the default encryption that is there. And
Got it.
then, so I am still not able to see the slide. It is showing up as blank for me. But in case if others are able to see, there is a circle, right, where the center piece represents your data, and the orange ring on top of your data is the encryption with service managed keys, which is the Microsoft BitLocker encryption, which is provided by default. And then the orange ring over and above the last ring is something which, if at all you are enabling, it is the encryption with customer managed keys that we have. And then lastly, a very important concept as well. So in case you want to encrypt the data from the client side, and then send it to the server, and then use the native encryption that is available with service managed keys or with customer managed keys, or whatever level of encryption you are looking to achieve. But then the number one criteria here is you want to encrypt the data on the client side before the data goes out of your application. Then you will use the always encrypted option with Cosmos DB. This is a service which is GA for more than a year now, and we have seen a lot of important enterprise customers adopt to this. So what happens here is the client will encrypt the data before they send out the data to Cosmos DB, uh, and then you can encrypt certain properties or you can encrypt the whole data. Like for example, you may have a requirement to ensure that the data should be encrypted before it goes out, right? So then uh, you can use one key for one property. So that's the other good thing. So if you have a requirement where, let us say, you want to encrypt PII data and then use one key for one type of PII, that is also possible. And then you can select whichever properties you want, set it up correctly in the encryption policy, and then use the appropriate keys, and then the data will get encrypted. And you can also do something like you can have two levels of encryption. So you can have two levels of keys, where you can also think about some data is accessible to some roles based on whether they have the decryption key or decryption ability or not. And then some other users can have other keys. So, like for example, finance team should not be able to see HR data, or HR team should not be able to see finance or salary related data, or something like that, right? There could be situations where you want one group within the org who are at the same level to access only data that is relevant to their department. So you can do that level of configuration by using the different keys and then enable the same. So again, as I mentioned earlier, this particular capability can be used along with the data at rest that is available by default, or by the customer management that you are going to use.
Dilip, there is a question on the chat. Let me
Sure.
highlight. All these security concepts are applicable to all APIs of Cosmos DB. I think whatever you talk now, are those applicable to different
Yes,
APIs on
yes,
Cosmos?
yes. So with Cosmos DB, as you all know, we are having multiple flavors of NoSQL that are exposed, but under the hood, it is one Cosmos DB. So we have the NoSQL API, we have the Mongo API, we have the Cassandra API, we have Table and Gremlin. Um, so these, like for example, the open source APIs, right? Like the Mongo and Cassandra, these are wire protocol compatible APIs. So the data will reside on Cosmos DB, but the way you interact with this particular data is as if you are talking to Cassandra, or as if you are talking to MongoDB. So you will continue to use all the open source drivers and clients that are available in the market. These are getting translated internally in the first layer to make sure that you are talking to Cassandra or talking to Mongo type of database. And then some of these data replication policies, like for example, when you do a write, we make sure that there are 4 writes that are made on Cosmos DB to ensure that there is data durability and the highest level of consistency you get, and all our consistency mechanism. These are all Cosmos DB specific and driven by Cosmos DB. So even though you are using some open source API, which may or may not have all the security features or replication features that you or you are seeing on Cosmos DB, all the APIs will by default get most of these. So there are some APIs which may be lagging very slightly on some feature. When we enable it one by one. So we keep testing it one by one and then start releasing it. But eventually, all the APIs will have all the security features, and it is something which you can take benefit of directly.
All right, got it. Yeah, I think those are the questions in the chat. Do you have anything else to talk about? Or
Um, No, majorly this is what I wanted to cover today, Saji. I
Okay.
had sort of thought that this could be something which will be important for the audience. There are a lot of other topics, something to do with data center security and global replication, and each of these topics, right? We can do a lot of in depth, like RBAC. So we have control plane RBAC and we have data plane RBAC. Now, control plane is all control operations that you do on the database, right? Like creating containers, deleting containers, and all that. And then certain things related to data, like which user can access what data in which container, right? So there are certain segregations around that. So we are having a very comprehensive control plane RBAC and data plane RBAC as well. And so many other security related deep dives that we can do. But we can keep it for some other day and answer
Sure.
any questions on these particular topics that the users have for today.
Yeah, I think we are almost on time, exactly 30 minutes. Thanks for keeping up the time. I mean, yeah. So I think thanks a lot for all the questions, and this has been a wonderful session. Dilip, thanks again for joining as well. Probably we would like to see more demos on the topics that you discussed in the upcoming sessions. Before I close, folks, those who are watching, please subscribe the channel and please do provide feedback if you want to hear about a particular topic. We will meet again in a couple of weeks. Next time we will be talking about a different topic with another special guest. We would like to have you, Dilip, again in another session. Thanks again for joining. Have a good day.
Thank you, Saji. I'm looking forward for more interactions and engage with your viewers. So yeah, looking forward to that as well.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks, everyone.